So you watch the video. You understand the concept, the thermal mass, the passive solar, the tire walls, the zero energy bills. You get it. It works. 50 years of documented proof says it works. And now you're asking the question that actually matters. Can I build one? Not, is it theoretically possible? Not, has anyone ever done it? Can you, with your budget, your land, your state, your situation, can you actually do this? This video is not going to sell you the dream. That video already exists. This one is going to walk you through every specific barrier you'll hit. The legal ones, the financial ones, the ones nobody puts in the brochure, and then show you every door that is genuinely still open. Everything here is based on documented legal records, verified cost data, and published research. This is your due diligence starting point. Always verify your own local regulations before you commit to anything. Let's go through it barrier by barrier. Barrier 1. The building code. The first wall is the building code, and to understand it, you need to understand who writes it. The International Code Council, the ICC, is a private nonprofit organization based in Washington, D.C. It writes the International Residential Code, which is the building standard most U.S. states adopt as their baseline. The ICC updates this code on a 3-year cycle. Here's what the ICC confirmed about its own membership structure. Corporations, manufacturers, associations, and industry groups can all join as corporate members. The National Association of Home Builders has a documented seat at the table. In 2019, the New York Times reported on a secret agreement between the ICC and the National Association of Home Builders that allowed the industry group to limit improvements to the code, specifically improvements that would make buildings more environmentally sustainable. That story triggered a congressional investigation. The ICC's response was that government officials hold the most control in the process. Draw your own conclusions about an organization that needed to clarify that. What this means in practical terms. The International Residential Code does not recognize tire wall construction as an approved building method. Tires are not on the approved materials list. That means in any jurisdiction that has adopted the IRC without modification, which is most of the country, building a tire wall earthship requires you to navigate what's called the alternative materials pathway. That pathway exists in the code. In theory, you can use non-approved materials if you can demonstrate equivalent performance through engineering documentation. In practice, you need a licensed structural engineer to certify your design and stamp your plans. Most structural engineers won't do it, not because the walls fail. Independent materials testing has confirmed that tires packed with rammed earth meet or exceed minimum compressive strength requirements for residential load-bearing walls. They won't do it because their professional liability insurance doesn't cover non-standard construction methods. If anything goes wrong on your build, anything, even something completely unrelated to the walls, a signed stamp puts them in the frame for it. So the pathway exists. The person who would need to open it has no financial reason to do so. That's the code barrier in full. Barrier 2. The money. The dream version of this story quotes builds from the 1970s. Here are the verified 2025 numbers. A professionally built Earthship through Earthship Biotexture in Taos runs approximately $225 per square foot. A 1,500 square foot home comes in around $340,000. That is not dramatically cheaper than conventional construction, and in some markets it is more expensive. Owner-builder costs are significantly lower. Verified builds range from $50,000 to $150,000 for a 1,500 square foot home, where the builder is supplying most of the labor and sourcing free tires. That range is real and achievable, but it requires you to either have construction skills coming in or develop them. The tire ramming alone, roughly 300 to 400 tires per home, each taking 30 to 60 minutes to properly compact, represents weeks of physical labor before a single internal wall goes up. There is also a resale problem that almost never gets mentioned. Research into Earthship resale values has found that the average resale price sits around $191 per square foot, against a professional build cost of around $225. That's a gap of $34 per square foot. On a 1,700 square foot home, that's nearly $60,000 in value you don't recover if you sell. The reason is financing. Most banks won't issue a mortgage on an Earthship. The problem isn't the structure, it's appraisal. Banks require an appraiser to find 3 comparable sold properties within a certain distance to establish market value. 3 recently sold Earthships within range of your location is essentially impossible to find in most of the country. No comparables means no appraisal. No appraisal means no mortgage. No mortgage means cash buyers only. Cash buyers are a small pool. A small buyer pool means a long wait and a lower sale price. This is not speculation. It is the documented experience of people who have tried to sell. What that means for you specifically. If you build an Earthship, plan to live in it permanently, or for a very long time. This is not a build and flip asset. It is a home for life. If your circumstances might require you to sell within 5 to 10 years, that risk is worth thinking through clearly before you commit. Barrier 3. The insurance problem. Even once you've built, you face an insurance calculation that works against you. Home insurers set premiums based on replacement cost, what it would cost to rebuild your home using conventional materials and standard contractors. An Earthship you built for $150,000 in materials and owner labor will be insured at the cost a conventional builder would charge to reconstruct that same square footage, which could be $300,000 or more. You are paying a premium calibrated to a replacement scenario that will never happen. There is no insurer who is going to rebuild your tire wall Earthship with conventional framing if it burns down. In New Mexico specifically, verified sources confirm that only one insurer, Brown & Brown in Taos, will insure Earthships at all. That is one company in one city for the most Earthship-dense community in the country. In other states, you are largely on your own finding a willing insurer, and the terms you get will reflect that rarity. Barrier 4. The neighbor problem. This one is less discussed and hits more people than the legal barriers. If your land is in an HOA-governed community, you are effectively blocked regardless of what your state law says. Homeowner associations enforce aesthetic standards, and an Earthship, with its curved walls, bermed earth, south-facing greenhouse glass, and non-standard roofline, will not clear an architectural review committee in any conventional subdivision in America. If your land isn't in an HOA but you're in a populated area, unconventional construction attracts attention. Building departments receive complaints. Inspectors visit. The process of defending your build against neighbor complaints and building department scrutiny takes time, money, and energy, often across the entire duration of construction. These are not deal breakers for everyone, but they are real, and they tend to catch people off guard who focused entirely on the legal pathway and assumed that was the whole picture. What's actually still open? Now, the doors. Door 1. The states where permits are more accessible. Verified sources confirm that obtaining a permit for Earthship-style construction is meaningfully more achievable in New Mexico, Pennsylvania, Wyoming, Nevada, Colorado, Florida, and Virginia than in most other states. Each of these still requires navigating local building departments, and county-level variation is significant, but the legal groundwork is more favorable. New Mexico is in a category of its own. The Sustainable Development Testing Sites Act, signed into law in 2007, created a formal legal framework for experimental sustainable construction in the state. The Greater World Community, northwest of Taos, more than 90 completed structures on 634 acres, operates under this framework. If you are serious about building an Earthship with full legal standing, this community and this state represent the clearest pathway currently available in the United States. Door 2. Rural county flexibility. Building codes in the United States are adopted and enforced at the county level. Rural counties across the western states have significantly less enforcement infrastructure than urban areas. Counties with minimal or no building code enforcement exist in most western states. Finding them requires research. Search your state name alongside terms like unincorporated county building codes or no building permit required county, but they exist and people are building in them now, legally, without the ICC approval process coming into play at all. Door 3. Owner-builder provisions. Most U.S. states have some form of owner-builder provision that allows individuals to construct their own primary residence without a licensed general contractor. The specifics vary considerably by state. Some require you to occupy the home for at least a year before selling. Some restrict how many times you can use the provision. Some still require licensed subcontractors for electrical and plumbing regardless. But the core provision, that you can build your own home to live in, is available in the large majority of states. This does not eliminate code compliance requirements. What it eliminates is the contractor licensing requirement, which reduces one significant cost layer. Research your specific state's owner-builder statutes before assuming this pathway applies to your situation. Door 4. Lose the tires. Keep the physics. The specific legal barrier is tire walls. The building code does not ban thermal mass. It does not ban passive solar design. It does not ban earth bag construction, rammed earth walls, or compressed earth blocks. Earth bags, polypropylene bags filled with the same compacted soil that goes into tires, deliver equivalent thermal mass performance. They are legal in more jurisdictions. They carry none of the emerging concerns around tire-derived compounds in soil. They require no specialized equipment. The physics is identical to tire construction because the thermal principle, mass, thickness, density, is what matters, not the container. If the goal is a home that manages its own temperature through thermal mass and passive solar geometry, earthbag construction gets you there with substantially fewer legal obstacles in most parts of the country. The practical checklist. Before you commit to a direction, here are the questions that actually need answers. What county are you building in? Not what state. What county? Call the county building department directly. Ask whether they have adopted the IRC and whether they have an alternative materials provision. Ask whether there are owner-builder exemptions that apply in your situation. Ask whether tire walls or earthbag construction have been permitted in that county before. The answer to that last question tells you everything about the path ahead. What is your timeline? If you need to be liquid within 5 years, the resale constraint is a genuine risk. If you are building a permanent home with no plan to sell, it is not. What is your labor situation? A professionally built Earthship costs comparable to conventional construction. The cost advantage comes from your own labor. If you cannot supply significant labor, or recruit it reliably, the financial case changes substantially. What climate are you building in? Earthships perform most effectively in arid climates with significant day to night temperature swings. The American Southwest is the documented sweet spot. In consistently humid climates, the passive thermal cycle is less effective. In heavily overcast regions with limited winter solar access, the passive charging system underperforms and supplemental heating may be required. The physics doesn't stop working, but the efficiency decreases and the design needs to account for that. Are tires necessary for your goals? If the goal is thermal mass and passive solar performance, the systems that eliminate heating and cooling costs, tires are one method of achieving it, not the only one. Rammed earth bags, and compressed earth blocks all achieve the same result. If tires are creating legal obstacles in your jurisdiction, the obstacle is removable without losing the outcome. Close. Here is the honest summary. An Earthship is not an easy build. It is not a cheap build up front. The legal landscape is genuinely hostile in most of the country, and the financial system, mortgages, insurance, resale, has not adapted to accommodate it. And the thermal performance is real. The documented evidence across 50 years in 3 continents is not in dispute. A well-built, well-sited passive solar thermal mass structure can eliminate mechanical heating and cooling costs permanently. That is not a claim. It is a measurement. The gap between those two things, a proven technology and a system that makes it difficult to access, is where this channel lives. The pathways are narrow, but they are real, and they are open right now. Rural counties, owner-builder provisions, New Mexico's legal framework, earthbag construction as a legal alternative. These are not workarounds someone invented. They are documented, legal, and in active use by people building right now. If you've tried to build differently and ran into resistance from permits, codes, or financing, leave a comment and tell us what happened. Because the more these stories are shared, the harder they are to ignore. And if you want more real investigations into the systems shaping how we build, subscribe to Ban the Build.